It's a Heidelminicast. And now, Scott Clark.
Reach into the coffer here, and Gina has a question about Romans 11:25 through 36. And what do we make about what Paul says there about from where the Messiah comes?
If the Heidelcast helps you, won't you help us keep it going? Please make the coffer clink by clicking on the PayPal link or by sending a check to Heidelberg Reformation Association, 1637 East Valley Parkway, number 391, Escondido, California, 92027.
Well, my baby, she wrote me a letter.
You got some letters?
We do. And so Gina says, Dr. Clark, in regard to Mondays, October 30th, you can that tells you, by the way, how big the stack of mail is. I really can't do more than 3 Q&A pods a week. The stack keeps growing. You know, I actually lost some of them, and then I found them. I thought, oh man, we don't have any email. And then in the mess that is my study/studio, I found them. And then obviously a lot more have come in since. So sorry for the long delay. Because, this came November 1st, so I'm sorry about that. But I'm getting to them as I can. Anyway, regarding Monday, October 30th, Heidelcast, that's what she says. Well, she heard it on Monday. It was out on Sunday, at least Pacific time. Romans 11:25 through 36, and specifically verse 26, and its comparison to Isaiah 59:20. I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but I wonder if Paul paraphrased Isaiah's prophecy saying, quote, the deliverer will come from Zion, close quote, in order to emphasize that the prophecy has already come to pass. For example, if I tell my preteen that I will come from the grocery store and pick her up at school, then she can assuredly know that I have already been to the grocery store when I get her. My trip to the store has already come to pass once I see her at school. Whereas Isaiah's future tense use of the word, a redeemer will come to Zion, implies that the event has not yet occurred. It seems to me as if Isaiah is essentially saying, be patient and look for the Redeemer to come, while Paul is saying, be assured that the prophecy has already been fulfilled because the Redeemer has come. I also notice a difference in my ESV translation in the words a and the, referring to Redeemer/deliverer. Isaiah says a Redeemer, while Paul says the deliverer. To me, these words contrast between what is unknown and what is assuredly known. That is, Isaiah was confident that God would send Messiah to redeem his beloved, but he wasn't sure exactly who that person would be. Paul, however, because he was an eyewitness, uses the definitive term the in order to proclaim that Jesus is most assuredly that Redeemer, deliverer, about whom Isaiah prophesied. I'd love to know what you think. Peace and grace to you. Well, peace and grace to you, Gina. This is a terrific email, and I agree with it entirely. So I don't have anything to add. So I'm going to press on here.
Heidelcast. This is the Heidelcast. Text the Heidelcast at any time at 760-618-1563.
That's great. Well done, Gina. I agree with you entirely. And by the way, I learn things from females all the time. Here I want to get after my patriarchal friends who don't think that we can learn anything from females about Scripture. I have female students where I teach, and typically, nothing's really changed since grade school. They're still the better students, at least in my experience. They tend to be. They tend to listen. They tend to, pay attention to what they're asked to do. I mean, not universally, not saying they don't sin or are rebellious or anything, but just to say that they do very well. And I learn from my female students all the time. And we use females who do work for the HRA, valuable, important work, challenging work. And anyway, so I'm just pushing back against this idea that, especially in light of Romans 16, the valuable work that females were doing, including Aquila and Priscilla, who, as I pointed out in that episode, talking about Romans 16. If you haven't heard it, it's at heidelblog.net/Romans. You can find the whole series there, or just subscribe, and you'll get it in your podcast app. Aquila and Priscilla taught Apollos, as I understand it, the meaning of redemptive history. And that's very important. I mean, it's assuming, especially as I said in the episode, and as I think if Apollos wrote Hebrews, that what he wrote in Hebrews is in some ways a reflection of the kinds of things that he learned from Aquila and Priscilla. It doesn't say just he, it says they clarified things. They corrected him. Anyway, so thank you, Gina. I appreciate that. Okay. I'm sure somebody will do a podcast about how I'm some sort of radical feminist. So it's already been done, and I've already responded, and you can find that at heidelblog.net/Heidelcast. It's frankly silly. Okay, Xavier Sanchez writes, good day. Wow. Good day to you, sir. As we might have said in the 19th century, and in a different context. It was a polite way of telling people to go away. Good day to you, sir. It's not what I mean. It's not what I mean. My Catholic, and I take that to mean Roman Catholic friends, he says that the Assumption of Mary is similar to other persons in the Old Testament who went to glory without suffering death. Is there anything I could say? Is the Virgin Mary similar or not to the other saints in the Old Testament? Many thanks beforehand. Okay, well, very interesting question, Xavier. And the answer is, well, we have specific revelation in Holy Scripture that certain people were assumed without dying into heaven. The first one that comes to mind is Enoch. This is from Genesis chapter 5, verse 21. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God. After he fathered Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters, thus all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Okay, so there is an example of a person who was assumed, if you will, right, taken up into heaven without dying. And it is certainly possible that the Blessed Virgin Mary was taken up to be with the Lord. He's certainly capable of doing that, and clearly he has done it in redemptive history. But in those cases, we have a clear, unequivocal declaration that this thing happened. Is there any such declaration about the Blessed Virgin? And by the way, she certainly is blessed. You know, sometimes we Protestants react to the Roman veneration and elevation of the Blessed Virgin by, sort of downplaying her. And I try to remember to refer to her as the Blessed Virgin because she was. Scripture says that she was, that she would be, and that she was, and that she carried, we confess in the definition of Chalcedon, the Theotokos. The Mother of God is the way it's usually translated. She bore in her womb God the Son incarnate, which is an amazing blessing and benefit. But we have no evidence from Holy Scripture that the Blessed Virgin was assumed. This is not a biblical doctrine. This is a doctrine that gradually developed in the medieval church. In fact, the status of the Blessed Virgin was much debated, and most of what Rome confesses about the Blessed Virgin is from the high and late medieval period, and it really became codified in official dogma relatively late in the medieval period. But the doctrine of the Assumption of the BVM is extremely late. The dogma of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary was issued by Pius XIII in 1950. So Rome is demanding that we acknowledge, recognize, and believe a dogma that was promulgated by papal authority, ex cathedra, from the throne. One of relatively few. In fact, this is the only thing that I know about. There may be others, but it's the only one I know, right? So this is a dogma promulgated, very recently by papal authority, and not something that has been held by the church in all times and in all places. So if you go back and look at the rule of faith, it became the Apostles' Creed. You don't see anything in there about the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin. You don't see anything in there about her so-called alleged Immaculate Conception. So these were all things, right, and the sort of veneration of the BVM. The Blessed Virgin is the way, that's the Oxford Dictionary of the Christian Church refers to her as the BVM. It's just a shorthand. I'm not being disrespectful. And those things were debated, what we should think about Mary. When in the High Middle Ages, it was proposed that there should be a feast in honor of the Blessed Virgin. That was controversial. And the idea that we should pray to her was controversial. So none of these things that have become Roman dogma are parts of the ancient Christian faith. They're not part of the rule of faith. They're not taught in Holy Scripture, and we're not obligated to believe them. And in fact, here, Belgic Confession, Article 26, is helpful when it says, "So then, sheer unbelief has led to the practice of dishonoring the saints instead of honoring them." That would include the Blessed Virgin. That was something the saints never did nor asked for, but which, in keeping with their duty as appears from their writings, now we don't have any writings obviously from the Blessed Virgin, they consistently refused. We should not plead here that we are unworthy, for it is not a question of offering our prayers on the basis of our own dignity, but only on the basis of the excellence and dignity of Jesus Christ, whose righteousness is ours by faith. Since the apostle, for good reason, wants us to get rid of this foolish fear, or rather this unbelief, he says to us that Jesus Christ was made like his brothers in all things, that he might be made a high priest who is merciful and faithful to purify the sins of the people. For since he suffered being tempted, he is also able to help those who are being tempted. And further, to encourage us more to approach him, he says, since we have a high priest, Jesus, the Son of God, who has entered into heaven, we maintain our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to have compassion on our weaknesses, but one who was tempted in all things, just as we are, except for sin. Let us go then with confidence to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace in order to be helped. So that's the way to think about this. I'd say to your friend, listen, there's just no biblical evidence for this. Nobody in the ancient church was talking about this doctrine of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin. And so there's no reason for us to believe it, and no reason for us to bow the knee to Roman demands that we acknowledge a dogma that they themselves did not promulgate as such until 1950.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for more from the Heidelcast, brought to you by Heidelberg Reformation Association.org. Don't forget, when the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks. Copyright Heidelberg Reformation Association. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.